I don't support Hamas. Do you support Hamas?
No.
I don't support Israel. Do you support Israel?
Yes.
So well, that's what we're going to talk about.
If Israel wanted to exterminate the Palestinian people, they could have done it in 3 months.
That's the worst argument you've ever made in all the time I've I'll tell you
Correct.
why. Vladimir Putin could have erased everyone in Ukraine with a nuke.
No, it's not Israel's policy to target civilians. Israel has gone out of their way not to.
335 bullets fired into a car with children. Is that a war crime?
I don't. You know what? Could be. Investigate it. But God damn it,
It was investigated, Joe.
This is what Hamas does all the time.
Right. They're starving people in Gaza. Are they starving people in Gaza?
What would you answer me something?
No, I'm not here to answer your question,
No,
Are they
they're not
people in
starving
Gaza?
people
So Cindy
in Gaza.
McCain.
Yes, there's starvation in Gaza, but gosh darn it, Israel has gone out of their way to allow aid in.
200 kids killed in the West Bank since October 7th. Are you okay with that?
No, I'm
Do you
not
condemn
okay.
Israel? Okay, do you condemn Israel for killing 200 children in the West Bank?
I'd have to know, Mehdi.
You'd have to know how the children were killed.
Yes, I'd have to know how the children was killed. Who's responsible for the children?
The Israelis
killed.
are.
Answer this. There's no peace in that region. Why? Is it completely
Because of
one-sided?
Benjamin Netanyahu.
That's why. No, hold on. No, it's
I'll
not.
read it a third time.
No,
That's
don't.
all it would
Mehdi,
take.
don't
You
read
can't
it a
pull
third
my
time.
questions out
Let
of
me
my hat.
answer the freaking question.
You may have watched part 1 of my interview with former Republican Congressman Joe Walsh, where we discussed MAGA and Donald Trump and Elon Musk. But coming up is part 2, and it's the kind of interview I haven't done for a very long time. It got very, very heated. We debated Israel, Gaza, war crimes, genocide, and more. You're going to want to watch this. Roll the tape. You have been an outspoken opponent of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, going as far as to call it a genocide. But when it comes to Gaza, you've criticized people for calling Gaza a genocide. Why is that, Joe? Why is what's happening in Ukraine a genocide, but not what's happening in Gaza, when far more people have been killed and displaced in Gaza than in Ukraine?
I think it goes to motive and intent. I think Putin is trying to kill, and he has been for 3 years, Ukrainian civilians, kidnapping Ukrainian children. His intent is to kill civilians. You and I can arm wrestle. I don't think that's Israel's intent at all. I think Israel...
Even though Israeli government members have said far more genocidal stuff than Vladimir Putin has.
Completely. There are extreme members of Israel's government.
Not just extreme members, the president, the prime minister.
There always have been. But
the president and prime minister of the country
I know,
have said stuff that Vladimir Putin has not said about Ukraine. And yet Joe Walsh... If you said neither's a genocide, then I'd be fine. We'd move on. We'll talk about other things about Gaza. What I find fascinating is that you're happy to say genocide here, but if you say it there, you get mad. I don't get it.
Well, I don't get mad. I just think...
You do. I've seen some of your tweets.
I just think Putin's intent is to eliminate the Ukrainian people.
Based on what? His words?
Based on his actions.
Why is Israel's words and actions not the same?
Israel's actions and words, again, you can find some, but Israel's...
Some. I could read you dozens. I'd be here all day if I started reading out all the genocidal statements from Israeli ministers.
I can find you a more history
Just a few days ago,
Just
a few days ago, the deputy speaker of the Israeli parliament and senior member of the Likud party, Netanyahu's party, said that the Palestinian civilians, his words, civilians, are scum, subhuman, and the women and children should be separated so that men can all be killed. That is stuff that Milosevic said. That is stuff I've not even heard Putin say. I don't hear Joe Walsh condemning that as genocidal.
Well, I would condemn that, and I will condemn that statement.
That's a genocidal statement.
That is a genocidal statement. I'm saying, Mehdi, that is a very minority view overall in Israel. Oh, my God, in Israel's government and among the Israeli people.
Well, put the Israeli people to one side. There's many polls. The Israeli government consists of Netanyahu and Smotrich and Amichai Eliyahu, who said, let's drop a nuke on Gaza.
That's not the majority. You think...
That is the Israeli government, Joe. They're the people killing the Palestinians right now, creating the post-war plan to wipe out the Palestinians with Trump to get rid of them from the place. All genocidal.
Is it Israel's intent to target and kill Palestinian civilians?
100%, yes.
You believe it has? That's been their intent from day one after October 7th.
They've said it, Joe. The guy I just quoted to you, the deputy speaker of the parliament said, let's kill all the adult men in Gaza.
And I'm
so you're just putting your hands in your ears?
No, I'm telling you that's a minority view. That's not the majority.
Okay, Benjamin Netanyahu said they are Amalek. What is Amalek, Joe? In the Bible, Amalek is kill everybody. Men, women, children, even the donkeys. That's what Netanyahu said. I didn't hear Putin say that.
Mehdi, again, I can find extreme things that members of Israel's government has said.
Yeah,
If
that
Israel,
counts as intent, and that's why they're at the ICJ, and that's why ICJ is investigating him. That's why some of Israel's leading Holocaust scholars have said it's a genocide.
If Israel wanted to exterminate the Palestinian people, they could have done it in 3 months.
That's the worst argument you've ever made in all the time I've made. I'll tell you
Correct.
why. Vladimir Putin could have erased everyone in Ukraine with a nuke.
No.
Yes, he could.
Oh, God, no.
Yes, he could.
Well, with a nuke.
Yeah.
But with a nuke, then...
No, hold on. Your argument is Israel is not genocidal because they haven't killed everyone in Gaza and they could. I'm saying Vladimir Putin could kill everyone in Ukraine and he hasn't. Therefore, according to Joe Walsh's logic, Vladimir Putin is not genocidal.
A different situation in this degree. Israel is capable, from day one they were capable...
As is Putin.
Well, only with nukes. Israel is fighting another sovereign nation with a full-on military, with the support of the world community. Ukraine.
Oh,
Right,
you meant Russia, you said Israel.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Russia,
I'm sorry. So Russia literally has an opposing army supported that.
But it could wipe it out. And by the way, the definition of genocide is not to kill everyone in a place.
Mehdi,
you know this, right?
I do.
They don't have to kill everyone to be genocidal.
Oh, I know that. But Mehdi...
But what they've done meets many of the criteria of genocide, which is why they're in front of the ICJ, which is why some of the leading genocide scholars in the world are saying it's a genocide.
No.
Omar Bartov, Israeli Holocaust historian. Amos Goldberg, Israeli Holocaust historian. Daniel Blatvik, Israeli Holocaust. They all say it's genocide. Are they crazy? These people study this for a living, Joe.
But do you...
Not you and me.
No, I know that, and I respect those opinions, but I don't think that's the majority view. But secondly, going back to Russia...
Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, all say genocide.
Well, again...
Human rights groups... Israeli Holocaust historians, Joe Walsh. With respect, what do you know that they don't know?
With respect,
I'm
sure it's more than Joe Walsh. But again, just to get back to Russia on this point, Mehdi, so Russia would be forced to use a nuke because Russia is fighting literally an army.
But they could, is what I'm saying. People were worried about Putin using nukes.
But a nuke then would mean the destruction of Russia. That's a whole different equation. Israel doesn't have to use a nuke, and they didn't from day one, to get rid of the Palestinian people.
But they have made life uninhabitable. It's not hypothetical. Right now, as of right now, Gaza is uninhabitable. Donald Trump says so, the President of the United States. In fact, let me show you. I think we've got some footage. I'd love to get your response to this footage, because Gaza, over the last 16 months, have a look at the screen, has suffered an apocalyptic level of destruction. This is a recent drone video from January. 70% of the buildings destroyed. Look at that imagery. That is not an anti-terror operation. That is not just targeting Hamas. That is, look at the imagery. That is something out of, I don't even know is it a Mad Max movie? It's entirety destruction. If that's not genocidal, I don't know what is. I haven't seen scenes like that in Ukraine, maybe in one town, Mariupol, but I haven't seen the entire Gaza Strip.
Mehdi, by every measurement of urban warfare, Israel has
Please don't give me a talking point, Joe.
No, I'm not. I'm looking at that.
Respond to the footage.
I'm responding to the footage.
You don't give a damn about that.
No, I do. Don't say that. I do give a damn.
Engage with it. Please don't give me some talking about urban warfare stats.
No, it is.
I know the stats. I can give you stats. I'm asking you to respond to that footage.
Agreed. And
entire cities and towns wiped out.
Gaza needs to be rebuilt.
That's
no
not
doubt.
engaging with the footage.
No, it is.
What is your human reaction to seeing entire towns, cities, refugee camps wiped out?
My reaction is that really sucks. That's horrible. That needs to be rebuilt. But I'm not going to lay the lion's share of the blame on Israel.
The people who wiped that out. The people who chose to drop 2,000-pound bombs on civilian homes, apartments, buildings.
I'm going to lay the lion's share of the blame on Hamas for starting the war on October 7th, knowing exactly what would happen, hiding for years behind their civilians, putting their civilians in harm's way. I'm not going to blame the army.
It's a very strange argument that says they started a war knowing that would happen. So
So
hold on. So if I start a fight with a known gangster or murderer, and he kills a bunch of my family in response, it's my fault?
Oh.
No, seriously, the law, it's a very strange argument.
Yes.
You're basically conceding that Israel was going to respond in a genocidal way. That's what you're saying. You're saying Hamas started knowing Israel would do that. That doesn't make it morally right what Israel did.
I'm not conceding that's a genocidal way.
What is that? What is that imagery in your eyes? I'm trying to understand what is that imagery.
That is a horrible result.
That is something we've not seen in modern wars. I mean, what they've done in Gaza, other military commanders, you know this, Joe, including the US, have said, we would never do this.
But Mehdi,
the UK, the US.
Gaza is a very unusual setting for a war like this.
Yes,
I'll give you this. But we're talking about
children.
We're talking about Hamas that has a history of purposely provoking Israel, then
That's
hiding
your claim.
behind.
They would say they're provoked by Israel by an unending occupation.
but
I want to ask you this question about civilians. I do want to ask you a question.
I love being with you.
No, but I want to ask you because I want to deal with actual substantive stuff.
But that is substantive stuff.
That's opinion. I want to deal with fact.
Oh my God.
It is opinion about who provoked who. We can get into that. I will come to that, I promise. But just dealing with this, I just want to deal with human. Because the reason I want to talk to you about the subject is because at home in the US, I see you caring about human rights, civil liberties, democracy, fascism. And then I see Israel, you're on the wrong side completely. So when I look at, for example, that destruction, I don't think you would defend that if it wasn't Israel that was doing it. Similarly, 6-year-old Hind Rajab, you always say Hamas, Hamas, Hamas. This is the great excuse for Israel committing war crimes. You have a 6-year-old girl, Hind Rajab, infamously killed in a car with her 4 cousins, her uncle and aunt, all killed by an Israeli tank that was firing at them. She makes a 911 call. Very, very tragic, horrific call. They send 2 paramedics, the Palestinians, to rescue her. The Israelis killed the paramedics as well in the ambulance. Sky News, the Washington Post have all debunked the Israeli denials that their tank wasn't in the area at the time. The UK independent investigators, Forensic Architecture, they looked at it and said that the Israelis fired 335 bullets into this car and that the tank driver had to have seen that there were children sitting in this car. How do you defend that, Joe?
I don't.
You do. I've got a quote from you that says, Israel deserves immense praise for winning this war as carefully as they can. Would you say that to the remaining family members of Hind?
No, let me finish.
Would you say that to their faces of Hind Rajab's family?
Oh, God, no. Mehdi, look, I defend the way Israel... Let me finish.
In abstract, which is why I give specific.
No, I
know how people do this. Abstract.
No.
Specific.
So let me address both.
Yeah.
I agree. Broadly speaking, I defend the way Israel has fought this war, acknowledging that, and let me finish this thought, that mistakes are made in every war, and that there are purposeful, indefensible acts made even by the IDF and any military. And that's an example of one. And this is...
So you're agreeing then that in this war that you support, Israel has committed war crimes?
I agree. Purposeful... Yes, mistakes have been made.
No, not mistakes.
I'm not going to...
Mistake is, I shot that person, I didn't mean to shoot that person. A war crime is, I deliberately killed a civilian, which you seemed to concede for a moment, and then you pulled back.
No, hold on. I don't know that I'm going to call it a war crime.
Why?
I'm going to say, I don't know.
What's killing a child with 335 bullets isn't a war crime?
Give me the formal definition of war crime.
A violation of international humanitarian law, deliberately targeting civilians. What every human rights group... I mean, I could start reading to you from... I could read to you from the International Criminal Court Chief Prosecutors.
So yes.
We know because he's literally charged the Prime Minister you support with war crimes.
Well...
And crimes against humanity.
I don't support that
Prime
Minister.
You've praised Netanyahu.
I also called for him to resign.
I know, but you've also praised him. You've also praised him.
Right. But let me get that on the record.
So I'm factually accurate
2
when I
weeks
say you've
after
praised
October 7th, I said he needs to go.
And then in the 18 months since, you've praised a man who was indicted.
I've also been critical of him as well.
Indicted for war crimes.
Oh, I could care less about what the IJC said about war crimes.
You sound like a Republican of old now.
No,
you do. Republicans, this is what I'm saying. At home, you're like rule of law, judiciary, courts. Abroad, screw the ICJ and the ICC. Do you see how you switch from home and abroad? At home, you're Joe Walsh, the Democrat.
Still the same.
Abroad, you're Joe Walsh, supporter of fascism, anti-international law.
But you know what's great about this whole thing is it's all focused on Israel. You haven't, for a second, talked about what Israel...
Well, why would I? You're not a supporter of the Palestinians or Hamas. When I talk to people who support that, I ask them about that. You are a supporter of the Israeli government, so I'm going to ask you about Israel.
And you
can do whataboutism all you want. Again, that's what MAGA people do here. When you ask them about MAGA, what do? They blame the Democrats. So let's not play that game. Let's ask you about Israel.
Mehdi, it's not the MAGA game. I'm going to say yes, Israel's made mistakes. I'm going to say yes.
War crimes.
Israel,
no, I'm asking war crimes.
Israel, call it what you want. Israel.
No, I'm asking you to call it.
And I'm going to tell you. I don't know. I'm going to tell you.
No, Joe. No, I'm not going to let you run away with it. You can shout all you want. 335 bullets fired into a car with children. Is that a war crime?
I don't. You know what? Could be. Investigate it. But God damn it,
it was investigated, Joe.
This is what Hamas does all the time.
Joe,
hiding behind civilians is a war crime. You know what slays me about you?
By the way, you said I see you say this all the time.
What?
Hiding behind civilians. And yet, when Israelis actually use Palestinians as human shields, you don't say anything. Last week, it emerged. I checked your Twitter, Joe. You can correct me.
What?
Last week, it emerged that an 80-year-old man, Israeli press reported, was being used as a human shield. They were taking him into houses, putting him in front of them, an actual human shield, right? They were using
You know
a Palestinian man.
but Mehdi-
they've done that many times. Do you know they've sent?
They've
hold
done
on,
that
let me
many
finish the
times.
sentence. They sent Palestinians into tunnels in Gaza. Have you condemned that as
Mehdi-
have you condemned that as the use of human shields?
Was
Yes
not
or no?
aware of it, and if I was aware of it, I'd
Why
condemn
aren't you
it.
aware? It's all over the Israeli press.
Why are you not acknowledging that this is Hamas's policy, and this has been their policy from day
What
one?
I acknowledge
and
about
this
Hamas is irrelevant because
then, no,
I don't
no.
support Hamas.
Let me hear you
Hold on,
say
hold on.
it.
I don't support Hamas. Do you support Hamas?
Do
you support Hamas?
No.
Do you support Hamas?
No.
I don't support Hamas. So that's done. Do I support Israel?
Stop for a minute.
Can
It's
I finish
not
a
done.
sentence?
No.
Can I finish a
No,
sentence?
not when you don't let me finish sentences.
Joe, let me finish mine. But I
Bullshit,
promise I'll let
Mehdi.
you give a long answer. I'll give you a long answer if you let me finish this one sentence. I don't support Hamas. Do you support Hamas?
No.
I don't support Israel. Do you support Israel?
Yes.
So well, that's what we're going to talk about. Now I'm going to
Stop.
ask you,
No.
It's very simple. You're here to support Israel.
No, but stop. But Hamas.
Why don't I talk about something we both disagree
Hamas
with?
has been the governing entity in Gaza for how many years? So yes, you do need to talk about Hamas because Hamas did what they did on October 7th.
And we've condemned it. Do we
Hamas
both condemn
has a
that?
history. Do you condemn? Yes. Do
Yes,
you condemn?
but you're not condemning Israeli war crimes. That's what I don't understand. You're trying to dodge it with whataboutism about Hamas. It's a very simple question. I can keep going. Let's play a clip here. Let's play a clip for you to watch. We got a clip of a grandmother. Here's a grandmother. Maybe you're not aware of this one. This is a Palestinian grandmother in her 50s. She's holding a child, right, in her arm. He's got a white flag. She's shot in cold blood by an Israeli sniper who's...
Mehdi, I don't know what the hell that was. That's not... How do I know?
It's a sniper who shot at a Palestinian grandmother.
Mehdi, you invite me on, you show me a clip of that, and you tell me what it is. I'm sorry, okay, I'm not familiar with that. Okay? I'd like to know what that is. I'm not familiar with that.
You know I can go through multiple examples, right? You know that. I can start reading multiple examples. The Al-Dos family in Gaza, whose apartment building was bombed. We can go through each and every example.
But where you and I will disagree is this. And I'm telling you, this is ugly and it's horrible and it's unfortunate.
It's war crimes.
It's not Israel's policy to target civilians. Israel has gone out of their way not to. They are fighting an opposition, Mehdi, that has a history of doing the exact opposite.
You say they don't have a policy of doing that.
And see, you won't acknowledge that. Can you say yes or no to that?
What, yes or no to?
Does Hamas have a history of doing the exact opposite?
Hamas has a history. Hold on.
Target Israeli civilians?
Hamas has, yes, it has in the past. For example, when I was a teenager, I was condemning bus bombings, if you remember, in the 90s, right? But hold on.
As a policy,
this is
though,
pure
Mehdi.
whataboutism, Joe.
No, it's not.
It is.
As a policy. That's the policy of Hamas. The governing entity of Gaza.
I'm the only one here who has condemned civilian killings on both sides. You've called it a mistake, which I find grotesque. Let me read to you about Israeli policy. This is from Haaretz last year, Israeli newspaper. You're saying you're not aware of this. Let me tell you this. An Israeli soldier relays that a senior commander asked him to shoot an unarmed man with a white flag. He said he's got a white flag. He says, I don't care, shoot him, it's an order. Another Israeli soldier told Plus 972 there were no restrictions on ammunition. We could just shoot to relieve our boredom. We don't need to explain. You just shoot. When soldiers see someone approaching, it's permissible to shoot them. We can shoot a young girl, an old woman. This is testimony from Israeli soldiers, Joe, that it's a free fire zone. They can shoot and kill whoever they want. That is a policy. That is a war crime, and many would argue that's genocide. That is what you're defending today, which is kind of sad.
Do you believe... Answer this question.
No.
I'm saying I condemn that. And
finally, it's a war crime.
Hold on.
It's easy to say I condemn it.
No, man.
Why won't you call it a war crime? I'll say what Hamas did on October 7th was a war crime. Will you say what I've described a war crime?
Everyone's
watching. I'm the only one condemning war crimes on all sides.
Hold on. Maybe a war crime. I don't trust some international group who
You don't trust Palestinians who talk about being raped and tortured in captivity.
I don't trust an international group with an inherent anti-Israel bias to tell me that's a war crime.
Is the International Criminal
Israel,
Court
by the way,
anti-Israel bias?
Oh God, yeah. Like the UN has. Like the UN has in its.
You just made a claim. This is very Trumpy right now. You're just throwing things around. What is the ICC's evidence of anti-Semitism?
Do me a favor. Do me one favor. Don't call it Trumpian. Don't call it MAGA.
Because it's so fascinating to see that you are borrowing.
I think the United Nations has an anti-Israel bias.
That's a different answer. I said it's the ICC. Where's the ICC's anti-Israel bias?
That's not Trumpian.
I don't want to debate that right now. I'm asking Israel, because it's a long debate. This is a very simple one. Where's your evidence of ICC anti-Israel bias? Most of the people they've indicted are African leaders. They haven't indicted anyone from Israel ever. They also indicted Hamas commanders.
Because I do not believe Israel's committing a genocide, and I think they were out of line saying that Israel's committing a genocide.
ICC never said they're committing a genocide.
What ICC said?
The International Criminal Court said he's guilty. They charged him
with war crimes,
with willful killing of civilians and starvation.
Charge 2.
Right? And guess who backed them up? Guess who was their advisor? Theodore Myron.
Charge 2.
Holocaust survivor.
Charge 2.
Israeli
Netanyahu.
judge. Is he anti-Israel as well?
Charge 2. Netanyahu.
They tried Netanyahu and Gallant.
You think Benjamin Netanyahu and Gallant have purposely tried to destroy, kill, and starve?
That is what the evidence that the ICC have amassed.
That's what the ICC has.
And your argument is, instead of engaging with the evidence, like the evidence I've given you, is to say that, hold on, let me finish that, anti-Israel bias. That's just Trumpian.
Mehdi,
you're not engaging in the facts.
Because you know what you've done? You know what you've done again? You're not the ICC, I'm not. You know what you've done? This is what you do. I love you, you're great, but you will grab example after example, and you'll tell me that factual instances, and you'll tell me this is proof that this is Israel's policy. And I'm telling you,
just read out to you what soldiers say is
Israel's policy is not to target and wipe out and destroy.
And the difference between me and you is you're just opining and I'm giving evidence. How do you know it? I've given you an example.
You're giving me examples.
So far, since this interview began, I've read out to you what the Deputy Speaker said, which you condemned. I've read out to you about a kid being killed, which you apparently... Let me finish. You keep interrupting me and say I'm interrupting you.
Bullshit.
A kid being killed, you've condemned it. I've shown you a video of a grandmother being killed. You said you don't know anything about it. I've read out quotes from Israeli soldiers, and I've quoted the International Freaking Criminal Court. And you said... they're just anti-Israel.
Tell me
that does sound Trumpy.
Well, they are anti-Israel.
I've condemned
every.
Stay here all day. Where's your evidence that the ICC is anti-Israel?
I'll condemn every example you've given me.
Where is the evidence ICC is anti-Israel?
My evidence that they're not is the way that Israel has conducted this war. Period. Trying to move civilians out of the way. Leaflets to notify civilians to get out. We're going to bomb here. Going out of the way. Clearing hospitals.
They destroyed most of the hospitals in Gaza. Just stop this.
Why did they destroy hospitals?
You haven't answered my question.
Have they not given warning?
It's very funny that you haven't answered my question, but I'm going to go back to it. You've known me for years. I'm going to go back to it. What's your evidence that the International Criminal Court has an anti-Israel bias?
I think they've exhibited anti-Israel bias because I do not believe the evidence they presented justified that willfully Netanyahu and Gallant committed war crimes.
You've read all the evidence. The evidence is there.
I got to go back, but yeah, I read a lot of it.
Their legal advisor,
I do not
the
believe,
guy who supported them,
the
guy who supported them is a man named Judge Theodore Myron, who's a Holocaust survivor and an Israeli judge. He said
I'd feel these
charges. Is he anti-Israel as well?
I'd feel this.
No, but is he anti-Israel as well? You don't say you disagree with the court. You go for this lazy, they're anti-Israel, they're anti-Semitic.
I do disagree with the court.
That's fine. But what's the evidence that they're anti-Israel?
I think they've always said.
It's just a conspiracy. It's just ad hominem. And that's why I say it sounds Trumpy. You just throw out anti-Israel. Based on what? You've got no evidence. I consider it all day. What's your evidence for the ICC?
Because I think they had it in for Netanyahu.
Based on what? Who cares what you think?
What's your evidence? I got to go back. When I look at what was put forward.
They've charged mostly African leaders, and in this case, they've charged Hamas and Israel. And your argument is, instead of engage with the copious evidence that the prosecutors brought, that the judges have supported.
You look at the way Israel.
The evidence is there. You don't want to hear starvation.
You look at the way
they're starving people in Gaza. Are they starving people in Gaza?
What would you answer me something?
No,
they're not starving people in Gaza.
So Cindy McCain, is she anti-Israel as well? The head of the World Food Programme. Widow of the most pro-Israel senator in our lifetime. She has said that people are starving to death in Gaza. They're blocking our aid trucks.
Whose fault is that?
Is she lying, Cindy McCain? She's blaming Israel. Is she lying?
People in Gaza may be starving.
Is she lying is what I asked.
No, let me... Damn it, Mehdi, would you ask a fuck? Then don't ask it 4 times. Yes,
Answer it the first time, and I don't have to repeat it.
Do me a favor, stop, let me speak.
Please.
Yes, there's starvation in Gaza, but gosh darn it, Israel has gone out of their way to allow aid in. And who's stopped the aid? I mean, for 2-3 years, who's robbed the aid trucks and all the aid coming in? Hamas. Terrorists.
According to the US government, the Biden administration you supported, they didn't present evidence of Hamas stealing aid.
Yes, they
were
did.
criminal gangs that Israel actually supports, according to the Israeli press. But let me ask you this, because you're very supportive of Israel. That's why I want to do this interview, and then you don't want to actually defend them. You want to make it about Hamas. Just before, I got to ask you this.
I do. No, stop. I defend the way Israel's fought this war.
Even though,
period.
Even though every example I've given, you say you condemn it, but at the end you still support
them. Even though there are examples of outrageous and atrocious behavior.
I had Ehud Olmert.
It's not the policy of the IDF
I've had Ehud Olmert. By the way, whether it's your policy or not, a war crime is a war crime, Joe, by the way, just to break that to you. It doesn't matter what your policy is. If you commit a war crime, that's a crime. That's just so you know international law. I've had Ehud Olmert on the show, former Prime Minister of Israel. I've had Ami Ayalon on the show, former head of Shin Bet. On that screen, and they've supported Israel, but they've also criticized Israel's in many ways, in a way I don't hear someone like you criticizing Israel. You tweeted recently, I'll swim across the ocean to defend Israel. You're very gung-ho in your support for Israel in a way that Israelis are not. They're like, our country is messing up big time. And then there's you. I haven't heard you criticize so many things Israel are doing. You are today because I've asked you to. But I went through your Twitter thread. I went through your Twitter, Joe.
No,
Let me just ask you.
Mehdi,
I just want to ask, just want to check your views.
I don't.
So let's check, so viewers know your views. So
Generally, I don't.
You don't
Go
criticize
ahead.
Israel?
No, I will, but generally I don't. I'm
So, for
very
example,
pro-Israel.
40,000 Palestinians in the West Bank have been driven from their homes. The Israelis said you can't come back. That's a war crime. Do you condemn that? Just in the last few weeks. Do you criticize
What do you
that?
mean they've been driven from their homes?
They've been pushed out by the Israeli military. 40,000 people, the size of a town in your old district in Illinois, just gone. And they've been told you cannot come back. Netanyahu's sitting in their house in a photo. You would go mad if Vladimir Putin was sitting in a Ukrainian home.
Mehdi, I don't understand what. Pull back for a minute. After October 7th, what would you have had Israel?
The West Bank has nothing to do with October 7th. That's why I specifically asked about the West Bank, because I know you're obsessed with going back to October 7th. Hamas as if the world began.
I'm sorry.
The West Bank. Hamas does not run the West Bank.
I didn't know you were talking about the West Bank.
I'm talking about the West Bank. 40,000 people driven from their homes by violent settlers. You've been watching the violent settlers, crazy people. I assume you don't agree with them. They make Marjorie Taylor Greene and Trump look moderate, the far-right Israeli settlers.
They are as close as we've got to radical Islamist terrorists.
And they are driving people out of their homes, 40,000 people. Do you condemn that? I've not seen you say a word about that on your social media and your shows. That's happening right now. I don't hear you criticizing Israel for it.
I don't.
You don't criticize Israel for driving 40,000 people from their homes?
No, I don't. Look, Israel has to. They're not going to make the same mistake they made in Gaza.
They're doing exactly what they did in Gaza, actually. They're displacing people from their homes.
What do you mean they're doing what they did in Gaza?
Well, 1 million people have been driven from their homes in Gaza.
And
now we have 50,000 people.
Why?
Because Israel is breaking international law.
Oh, not because the ruling governing entity of Gaza declared war on Israel on October 7th.
Even if that were true...
And that's not true?
No, there was a war before October 7th.
No.
I know Joe Walsh's world began on October 7th, but there's been an
No,
occupation since
I know
1967. Hamas didn't even exist in 1967. So the war didn't begin on October the 7th. But my question is, you're saying now today...
Okay,
let me ask you this.
They initiated the latest stage of this war.
200 kids killed in the West Bank since October 7th. Are you okay with that?
No, I'm not okay.
Israel? Okay, do you condemn Israel for killing 200 children in the West Bank?
I'd have to know, Mehdi.
You'd have to know how the children were killed.
Yes, I'd have to know how the children was killed. Who's responsible for the children
killed? The Israelis
are. Just like
the Israelis
are.
Yeah,
just like I'd want to know every Israeli,
these are kids killed with
every
snipers.
settler killed in the West Bank. Look, Mehdi, this is
200 kids killed. And you can't bring yourself to condemn that.
I do condemn it. I want to know.
You didn't just a moment ago. You literally did not.
I don't know who killed those 200
Israel
kids.
did, according to every international observer, human rights, the UN,
Show me.
Show me what?
Show
me children.
Show me every instant where the two, and I'll show you a terrorist attack where 6 Israelis.
There is not true. There are no. Many of these cases involve children.
No,
who
I'll
near.
show you a terrorist
video
attack
from Channel
where
4 News.
Israelis
You're just making stuff up now.
I'm not.
You are. I said to you, many kids are killed, and you just assume there's a terrorist attack. No.
Mehdi, you make this sound like a fucking one-sided affair forever. I know the war's been going on forever.
Maybe that's telling. Maybe that's telling.
But hold. What do you mean? Maybe that's telling?
It is one-sided.
Stop.
One side is the occupier. The other side is occupied. One side has nuclear weapons and is killing thousands of children. The other side has not killed thousands of children.
Let me ask you a question. Answer this. There's no peace in that region. Why? Is it completely one-sided?
Because of Benjamin Netanyahu.
That's why.
No, those are his words, not
that's
mine.
why.
Those are his words, not mine.
No, I'm asking.
It's funny because you said recently...
I'm not... No,
I'm glad you brought this
asking.
up. You said there would be peace in the Middle East tomorrow if the Palestinians wanted peace and agreed Israel has a right to exist. That's all it would take. And that's all. It's on the Palestinians, you said. Israel has always wanted peace. Ehud Olmert came on my show. He doesn't agree with you. Ehud Barak doesn't agree. There are Israeli politicians who say, actually, no, Israeli governments have blocked peace.
Let me ask you something.
Netanyahu said recently, no, Joe, you don't get to ask me a question.
No, let me answer.
No, then I'm going to answer it 4 times.
Let me answer.
Answer my question.
I'm not going to accept
Benjamin
your answer.
Netanyahu says, I'm the guy who blocked peace, blocked a Palestinian state for decades. He's bragging about blocking peace. And you're pretending that Israel isn't the block.
Hold on. I'm asking you.
I can read you the quote.
I'm asking you. I want to make sure I heard you correct.
Go on.
There is not peace in that region. Are you telling me that's all on Israel?
It's not all on Israel, but it's mostly on Israel,
It's mostly on Israel. Going back 70, 80 years.
Oh, of course. If you want to get into 1948, we could do that. There'll be another show. We don't have time for that today. But in terms of the last couple of decades of the quote-unquote peace process, Netanyahu said, his words, everyone knows that I am the one who for decades blocked the establishment of a Palestinian state. He's saying it out loud, and then you go on Twitter and say it's all the Palestinians' fault. That's absurd.
It is, because the Hamas, the PLO, majorities of the Palestinian people for years and decades do not believe Israel has a right to exist.
That's not
do you
true.
acknowledge that?
No,
that is true, Mehdi.
Arafat, in 1993,
true.
the PLO recognizes the state of Israel's right to exist in peace and security. That
was
was
part
1993.
It's part of Hamas.
And who ended that peace process? Netanyahu.
Who ended that peace
Yes.
process?
Rabin's widow blames Netanyahu. She says my husband's dead.
Rabin's widow does.
Yeah,
and Arafat walked away from it as well.
That you are more pro-Netanyahu than Rabin, Barak, Olmert. It's weird that Joe Walsh is more pro-Netanyahu than Israeli leaders who blame Netanyahu for this.
I'm pro-Israel.
No.
I'm pro-Israel.
Because the Israelis don't agree with you. Thousands of Israelis took
And I do not sit in front of you and say that this is all one-sided like you pretty much say.
Joe, you're lying.
Crap,
Okay, I'm going to read the quote to the viewers. It is on the Palestinians.
Yes.
That's what you just said.
I stand by that.
So you just lied.
No, hold on.
Joe,
I didn't
10 seconds
just
ago
lie.
you said I didn't say I put it all on the Palestinians. I'm going to
I
read the quote again.
Mehdi, I don't put it all
yes,
on the Palestinian
it is on the
people.
Palestinians. Israel has always wanted peace.
Yes.
That is putting it all on the Palestinians.
No, hold on. No, it's
I'll
not.
read it a third time.
No,
That's all it would
Mehdi,
take.
don't
You
read
can't
it a
pull
third
my
time.
questions out
Let
of
me
my hand.
answer the freaking question. Yes. The Palestinian people have to say that. And if they say that, Mehdi, then the Israeli people have to accept that.
They have said it multiple times.
Bull crap.
Well,
if the
you don't know what you're talking about.
No, you don't. If the Palestinian
No, I can give you evidence.
If
You've
the
not given any evidence
Palestinian
today.
people said tomorrow, if they all rose up.
They said it in 1993, 1988. The Arab Peace Initiative, 2002, 2007,
Bullshit.
2017.
It was part of the PLO chapter as of a few years ago.
ago.
It's still part of Hamas's chapter.
That's Hamas, not the PLO. Let me ask
It
one
was
last
part
question
of the
because we're out of
PLO
time.
charter.
You don't support a two-state solution.
No.
You have attacked the idea of a two-state solution. So what do you propose? That millions of Palestinians just live under occupation and apartheid with no voting rights, no equality?
It's not occupation. It's not apartheid.
Okay, you call whatever word you want. Palestinians living with no voting rights, no equality, no freedom, indefinitely. That's the Joe Walsh solution.
Palestinians were given Gaza.
That's not what I asked.
I'm getting to my answer. Palestinians were given Gaza, and look what they did with it. The Palestinians were given the West Bank.
When were they given the West Bank? You're lying, Joe. They were never given the West Bank. Israel has occupied the West Bank since 1967.
They were given
Israel controls everything in the West Bank.
I know that. After, again, the history is littered with Israel
but
being
I'm not even
attacked.
asking history. I'm asking future.
I'm telling you.
What do you think should happen to 3 million Palestinians living in the West Bank?
It should be Israel, and the Palestinians.
So they should have equal voting rights.
The Palestinians should live in Israel
as Israeli citizens.
Absolutely.
So one state. So you're in favor of one democratic state.
Yes, absolutely. And I know what you're thinking. I know where you're going. I'm telling you this.
I'm fine with that. I support that, but I'm surprised to see you support that.
I've always supported that because Arabs and Muslims.
But then you know that Palestinians would probably end up being the majority in that state, which is why the Jewish people have blocked that for a long time.
I do know that. Maybe. I'm not convinced of that.
But you would say, a solution to the Middle East would be to give all of the Palestinians in the West Bank and all of the Palestinians in Gaza, Israelis should have one state.
I would say
one equal state, which they have equal rights. Do they have equal rights?
Can I just answer it? Yes. A one-state solution. The state is Israel. The West Bank, Gaza, it's all Israel. Everyone living in that state has equal rights. I wrote an article about that 13 years ago.
Well, we're almost in agreement because if they all had equal rights, it wouldn't technically be Israel, which is an ethno-state.
I think it would.
But I think we can. I think if we can both agree that it's a state where everyone's equal, then I don't care what we call it.
It would be Israel now, but a bigger Israel, and maybe Jews would be outnumbered. But I don't think
I don't care about names. I want equal rights and everyone to have voting rights and freedom.
And I want.
Do you?
Yes, and
Let's end on a note of agreement then.
And I want the Israelis and everybody to be able to live in peace.
Joe Walsh, thank you for taking this time out to have this debate.
Thanks, man.
Did you like this video? Don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel and turn on notifications. For exclusive content and to support our independent, unfiltered journalism, head over to zeteo.com. Your support matters.